Ouch, damn it, father. You said it hurts a little. Victor Primus Lancefire complained like a child, as the needles of the precious etheric detector sank into his left forearm. Romulus ran at his side and smelled the bleeding arm with concern on his wolfish face. Then licked the blood, as if his germs would help the wound heal faster. Leave it be, Romulus. I can deal with a little pain. Victor grumbled as his blood angel bodyguard snickered in a soft laugh. He was only human, not a bioengineered supersoldier. Governor, you could forsake this weakness easily, you know? My progenoid glands are full, should you accept a gene seed implant? The blood angel veteran offered with a kind voice. Victor sighed inward. Again, the same thing. If father had wanted his firstborn to be a space marine, he would be already, possibly even at captain rank after a century of service. Type 5 minor disturbance, localized. The detector provided in his mind as his hand stopped in front of the armored Astartes. Working perfectly, as expected of Catan Xenotech. The tesseract crystal hidden in a pendant at his neck tingled with a subtle warning, as a corvette-sized vessel walked inside the Alivar system, filled with some kind of modified humans. Dad. Look here. He whispered in his mind. Nothing reached back, meaning father was already away from the Pharos. Oh well. Time to be a real governor then. He tapped his vox bead in his ear. Mother, there is an incoming ship. Human but strange. He spoke on the vox, hoping Lady Decima Lancefire would have more knowledge. His Astartes bodyguard checked his combi bolter, while Remus ran from the balcony and pressed the green button on the door, sealing the spire from the outside. How did the wolves know? We hear you, Governor. Auspec's stands are clear. Invisible, perhaps? Mother answered from the Lancefire Admiralty base with a worried voice. The blood angel coughed lightly. They could have a reflex_shield. Some Deathwatch kill teams used that device for high-secrecy missions. Victor blinked and wrote the words on his implant. Something father would be very interested in, no doubt. Corvette size, invisible to augurs. Imperial Black Ops. Recommendations? He asked on the vox, while already preparing a couple stratagems in his mind. Using the Tesseract openly was not advisable, except if. Maybe it was another Emperor-granted mission like last time, when his sister Janice came and absconded with the Black Lament? Or when Major Marbo stole a dozen Exterminatus torpedoes from the Lancefire armory? Or maybe, when Mother Elixir arrived on an invisible Vonus Temple shuttlecraft? Wait. He searched through his implant for today's unique code, and sent a manifold message to the Obsidian Mother, including a description of the ship and his suspicions. You were correct to disturb me, Governor. These people are not Deathwatch, but Temple agents. Which temple though? Lady Elixir de Mornay wondered in a strange voice. Just wait, and observe for now. We will run a number of Auspex tests, while the Obsidian parses the description through the Cogitator database. Lady Decima spoke in a sharp voice, then turned off her bead. Victor sighed and patted the anxious wolf on his nose. A temple ship, arriving unannounced and invisible. What could they want here? He mused in a low whisper. The giant blood angel tapped the blood drop sigil on his armor. They already have a ship, and wouldn't need your dynasty resources. Perhaps hunting someone? The Astartes answered in a thoughtful voice. Maybe they want obsidian access. We do have a huge network all over Ultima Segmentum. Victor answered with a frown, then sat down at his cogitator to wait. A new STC dataslate arrived with the Catan watch, containing some new templates, damaged or unfinished. Father wasn't shy of passing more hard work onto his heir. Scrolling through the new templates, he could easily see which designs were original and which were father's usual failures. Ionic flare shields for aircraft or sentinels, only the largest vehicles had iron shields in the Imperium, yet father wanted to give all his units some type of shield. And a better variant, covering all around and even countering projectiles. Ferrus Manus, the Primarch of the Iron Hands, was listed as the creator. Sure, it was easy to shift the blame on a dead man, and Primarchs and Saints were mostly unassailable by the priesthood of Mars. Celestine Pattern Multi-Lance. Celestine Pattern Multi-Cannon? Was Father still grieving for the dead saint? Etheric disturbance, type 2, inverted. The detector chimed in his mind, as a certain invisible Eldar solitaire entered the room without being seen by the Blood Angel or his Fenrisian wolves. Lord Nemorak, care for a drink? He offered politely as he took out a bottle of Amasec from his drawer. Oh! And now the son begins to match his father. Did you see that assassin ship? The solitaire asked as he sipped from his glass, ignoring the fuming Astartes. Yes, it's all the rage at the Admiralty. They keep cycling the Auspex frequencies, hoping to see a glimpse on their screens. Victor explained with a light voice, and took a larger gulp of Amasec, for courage. He knew what the solitaire was capable of, even outmatching Mother Ordella in speed and strength, and she was their strongest Omega- pariah. I hope the Calexis are not here for me or my ward. It would be a shame if our fight demolished this fair planet. The Eldar Harlequin said in a careless voice, sounding unconcerned for his safety. Then again, he and Mother Stern had demolished an entire galactic sub-sector by themselves. A mere planet was only spare change for those two. I would hope you can behave, Lord Nemorak. My father has authorized me to use drastic measures in case of clear danger. Victor muttered with a tired voice. And you have a new wristwatch as well. Quite a complex disguise for well. I should go and stay by Stern's side, lest she flares a lightning storm by accident. The solitaire added as he sped outside, stealing the Amasec bottle on the way. Amasec bottle, lightning storm, in the end it was a fair trade. Victor glanced at his bodyguard and he rushed to seal the door again. Victor picked the dataslate again, and almost had a heart attack. Hidden in the last words on the dataslate, there was an encrypted field for a stellar coordinate, marked with the black sigil of the obsidian. 3 people could read this code: Father, Janice and himself. Unrestricted use of Tesseract, even at the risk of discovery. A 9th_Blackstone_fortress reserved only for the Lancefire dynasty. And the Calexis Temple had just sent an invisible ship, while Father was away on a new crusade. He took out another Amasec bottle and drank directly, ignoring the fancy noble status of his governor rank. A Blackstone fortress was powerful enough to snuff great demons or close warp rifts. And a powerful pariah could use its beam to drain a warp god to death. Even Father had done that, once. Maybe a single bottle would not be enough. Victor felt his shoulders buckle under the weight of his duty. A giant palm covered his head, and patted him gently. Don't worry, Governor Lancefire. As long as I draw breath, I will keep you safe. The Blood Angel declared in a confident voice. Victor took another big gulp. He was a Lancefire and feared nothing. And he will soon get the means to kill anything, even gods. There weren't many gods left. They are moving towards the Admiralty base. Victor announced after almost 2 weeks of tense waiting. We can see them now, Victor. They seem to have reverted to standard void shields. Former Captain Chiron spoke on the Vox, sounding as bored as ever. Then again, the poor man had lived and endured far more than anyone here, except perhaps Mother Stern, who died a few times. It wasn't really a good comparison to make. Now Chiron had been decommissioned as a Lamenta active cadre, and served as bodyguard and advisor to Lady Decima in her capacity as the Lancefire House Fleet Admiral. And considering that their house now had over 2,000 warp-capable void ships, and hundreds of Macarius drive non-warp capital vessels, his mother controlled the largest navy in the Eastern Fringe, and quite possibly the largest private war fleet in the galaxy. There were mining consortiums and trade guilds with more ships inside the Imperium, but those were merely transport barges and such. Just ask them to remain on their ship. We already have enough trouble with a single invisible assassin running around, Victor said in a tired voice. No wonder his father had placed the burden of the Eldar Solitaire as far as possible, and into his hands. Nemorak even glued his two wolves together at the hip. Some kind of strange joke of Eldar make, most likely. Romulus perked up and stared at him for a second, before crouching and licking the patch of missing hair. On the other hand, the wolves didn't shred his bed for a month, always trying to stand alert for another prankster. Perhaps it was good trade? It wasn't his skin, after all. Take a small sip only, Governor. If they are Calexes, you will need all your wits for your trade. The Blood Angel spoke as Victor grabbed the Amasec bottle without knowing. I just wished Father was home, instead of fighting whatever Xenos he found at Mobius, he answered in a low growl, then opened the door to find Mother Stern and her sidekick already waiting. Victor, morose and depressed as ever. The Solitaire exclaimed in a joyous voice. Yes, yes. Now let's meet these guys and see what they want. Victor answered with a pained sigh. Then he opened the mind link to the Tesseract and moved the three of them inside the temple ship, just as it docked. Surprise was a precious resource, best employed to your own advantage. Etheric signal, Type 5. Hidden. The wristwatch pinged into his mind, pointing at an empty alcove at the side of the door. An Imperial agent, cloaked somehow. Victor checked the Tesseract vision, finding a giant man wearing a cowl, right where his eyes saw nothing. You saw this man before? He asked the Solitaire, as the Harlequin became still and cautious suddenly. Not him, but the same kind. Inside the Golden Throne. They wore golden armor there. Nemorak spoke softly, while tugging at his ward to stand back. The invisible man ignored the Solitaire and moved suddenly just beside Victor, already holding his left wrist and examining the detector. I will need a watch like this too. He spoke in clear High Gothic, and his eyes flashed golden for a short moment. Etheric signal, Type 5, inverted. His watch chimed softly as another invisible person appeared in the corridor. Victor nodded at the new invisible shape. A Custodes without armor and a Calexes temple pariah. I sure hope you have the right accreditation to be here. I serve as the Emperor's eyes, now that I am too old and frail for bodyguard duty. The Custodes said in a softer tone, almost ashamed. Then he produced a lion-shaped sigil, emitting the Emperor's house codes. Victor sighed and shook his head, forcing himself to withstand the engrams long enough to close the manifold circuit and lock his Miu implant. Old and frail, he says. Nemorak laughed and took Stern's hand, as they both vanished in a flare of light. Let's have a drink and speak. You have traveled a long way to reach Elivar. Victor proposed with a glance at the still invisible Calexes. They can't be all like their father, can they? A feminine voice asked in a curious tone, making the Custodes nod slightly. Not all of them. I heard the Adepta Tertia is special though. And now this boy. Victor Lancefire, I presume. Victor had already sat down and had an Amasec bottle in hand. 3 glasses fell onto the marble table, clicking with crystalline sounds. I believe you have come for a trade. Selling or buying? Victor asked calmly as he poured the drinks. The eyes _of the Emperor agent chuckled lightly, and took a small sip. Have you forgotten your duty to the Emperor, young Lancefire? Have you come to rescind our warrant? Victor asked with a small smirk. Their warrant of trade was signed by the Emperor himself. Father also had friends in the highest places, not only enemies. Good. As I said, I am not the one to induce violence, nor could I win such a contest here. And Lady Stern had killed a Calexes agent before. We can realize when we are outmatched. The giant man spoke with a glance at his comrade. The woman took off her strange helmet, revealing a pretty face with short blonde hair. The suit hugged her body closely, revealing an enticing shape. Good Amasec. Expensive, she murmured in her glass, almost like she was enjoying the appreciative looks of their visitor. Victor remained silent, as he observed the strange Custodes calling himself an eye of the Emperor. His body was covered in scars and injuries, and several bionic augments replaced lost parts. "You have millions of blanks here." The Custodes spoke after a minute of heavy silence. Victor nodded, as their presence was hard to mask for those with enough power. Very few of them are able to become space marines. Those that can, they already do. He preempted the demand. Father's Primarch, Lord Sanguinius, had demanded the same. Too few were born, and many died during implantation anyways. I suspected this was the case. Which is why I brought her. The Culexus Temple has the technology to fix this problem. We hope. The man said in a soft voice, "Hold strong, Amberley. He is on our side." The fearless Ordo Xenos Inquisitor whispered in her mind, focusing on the task at hand. Once more, she had to write a report to the Aegida Conclave, and very likely the report would once again reach Holy Terror and the eyes of the Emperor himself. Hereby, I describe the events I have witnessed personally or by augur relay, during the Mobius campaign. As instructed, I still follow the life and deeds of rogue trader Pef Lancefire, now bestowed with other imperial ranks such as Astartes Chapter Master, Terra Nobility and others. The target of this campaign was a Necron crown world, the capital of a Necron dynasty called Necthist_dynasty. These Xenos had been engaged in a long war with an Orc war, and thus were already on a war footing, also having captured or destroyed several Deathwatch kill teams sent to obliterate their leadership. The planet itself was not a standard Necron tomb world but a maze of hyperspace corridors which trapped and bewildered any attackers, which is how the besieged Xenos had managed to survive the aforementioned Orc war. Did that stop Lord Lancefire? Obviously not. While the Crusade fleet had less than 150 capital ships and 5,000 escorts, it was sufficient to bombard the damaged planetary shields and defenses, and provide an entry point for the following ground invasion. In a strange and uncharacteristic method for their usual deployment, the Lamenters attacked with their full chapter in force, often sword in hand, while their Lamenter auxiliar units followed at a sedate pace with heavy support from their armed sentinels. Although some use of Orc or Tyrannid Xeno Auxilia was noticed, I believe Lord Lancefire simply used the Xeno Auxilia to enrage or distract the enemy while his Lamenter Astartes and their human Auxilia advanced at speed through the hyperspace maze, cutting down millions of Necron warriors with unbelievable ease. A small number of Titans and Imperial Knights forced the maze open for the troops to pass through, but they remained outside and waited for the expected victory. And how did they achieve this victory? This time, the Lamenters and most of the Auxilia armed Sentinel Walkers were equipped with phase blades, although glowing a dull emerald green instead of the bright electric green used by certain assassin clades, such as the Calidus Temple. Could this be another Archaeotech STC discovered by Lord Lancefire? I do not know yet. Over 4,000 Lamenter Tech Marines and about 160,000 Guardian Remote Walkers aided the rapid push, while proving a significant increase in accuracy and coordination, by using more Tech Marines to control the Remote Walkers. It was an amazing sight to behold, as if an entire Astartes legion of old had returned through time to crush the humanity's enemy. In a single day, the Mobius campaign came to an end with a giant battle in a Necron monolith, where the Necron Pharaon the enslaver tried to use Deathwatch hostages and various booby traps in a desperate last stand, only to be casually clawed to death by Lord Lancefire's Fenrisian wolf called Canis. It is a giant wolf though, and his claws appear to also feature phased tech by their emerald glow. At least a quarter of the Necron world still stands intact and will be bestowed upon the Deathwatch as a new watch fortress, now that the Necron inhabitants have been all destroyed with impossible ease, and 3/4 of the maze had been returned to real space by some unknown means. Was this worth the lives of over 50 blank Astartes and over 1 million Lamenter Auxilia? Most obviously so, now that Lord Lancefire had completed the second half of this campaign and obtained another black fortress for his chapter. Startling still, the Lamenter's chapter appears to have returned to the full 1,000 battle brothers number not even a day after the fleet departed from Mobius, heading for a new target in this strangely named Demiurge Crusade. Is the Crusade name connected to those rumored Tau allies that may have provided the Tau Xenos with STC templates for their rapid technological development? I do not know, but I believe it so. Further updates to come as the Crusade continues. Amberley Vale, Holy Inquisitor for Ordo Xenos and Ordo, redacted. Thought for the day: compassion is reserved for servants of the Emperor, aliens deserve only our scorn. The blonde Inquisitor sighed as she flared her new alpha-level psyker powers and sent the psychic link page directly into the mind of a sanctioned psyker at the Aegida station. She did not mention her own involvement in the battle, as self-praise was not appropriate, especially to the Emperor of Man. He would know of her giant lightning arcs and millions of Necron kills anyways. No need to brag. Not to mention, because the Lamenters were immune to Psyker's powers, her lightning didn't cause a single injury to the front lines, unlike any other time when she had to intervene directly. Some young Lamenters even joked with her and called her Miss Friendly Fire. Sniff, she heard a sound right behind, then she closed her diary and turned around, to find a giant wolf head staring at her from above. "Canis, when did you enter my room?" she asked with a start. Sneaking up on an Inquisitor was nearly impossible, and one with alpha-level powers even more so. And yet, this wolf did so, easily. The wolf glared at her with intelligent eyes, then nosed her holith screen, making the galactic map center on another star system. Then he emitted a low growl and vanished, again without trace of a warp teleport or anything similar. Damn it. First it was a Primarch keeping his ghostly eyes on me, now a wolf? She muttered inward with a shiver. She had always known the wolf was strange, and more intelligent than any animal had the right to be. I mean, the wolf even had a mind implant unit, for Emperor's grace. Not to mention a collar shield and now phase claws. She decided to avoid mentioning the wolf again in her reports, it wasn't worth it. Pef Lancefire himself was difficult enough, without involving a strange wolf that was modified by Emperor for who knows what purpose. She still checked the new Octis system on the screen, then began searching for more information in the cogitator banks. A dozen failed searched later, and after using her clavis overrides she found a hidden message: Colonel SP-47 of Geno 760 Spartacid suspected Alpha Legion presence, departing to investigate, followed by a date in M30. During the Horus Heresy? No other messages either, probably meaning that old Imperial Army regiment was doomed, and this colonel had died without completing his report. What was she involved in now? How did the wolf know about this? Luckily, she had Pef Lancefire and his impossible powers at her side. Even if this was an Alpha Legion base, and even if Primarch Alpha Rios was there and waiting, she was confident in victory. The man had killed a Primarch by accident once. When I entered the command bridge of the Black Lament escorted by 2 giant wolves, my crew simply shook their heads, and ignored me. What were they going to say, when their chapter master acted strangely again? "Boss, you're being weird. Things didn't work that way in the Lamenters." Maybe Captain Semnai would have said something, but now the man was safely away with my Inquisitor wife, on the other side of the Astronomicon. Inquisitor Vale rose her eyes to stare at me and my wolves, and just shook her head. "We're coming upon System Octis in a few minutes, Lord Lancefire. I have some information about this place. It was perhaps a base of the Alpha Legion, long ago." She spoke instead, avoiding to look at either wolf. "Curious. I know it was a Necron base even longer ago," I said with a thin smile, while feeling ahead with the Tesseract senses. The Inquisitor pursed her lips, and she produced a glowing white ball in her palm. "Good, we will have our lightning storm if things went bad." Just like my Pharos vision had shown, the place was full of demiurge mining drones, as well as a decent fleet, almost matching my own in numbers. "Captain Teresa, maintain widest Auspex range with the planar line, deep below," I ordered to my new ship mistress, as I now preferred to focus on the wider view, without controlling the ship myself. Not that my recent action model would allow this, being headfirst into battle and leading the Lamenters in the field. It sounded a bit silly, even Black Templar silly, but it worked. Charging headlong into melee might sound suicidal, but not when wearing blackstone armor plates and wielding phase blades. The Catan blades were weightless and could slice through any armor or shield, as the Necrons on Mobius discovered to their surprise. As you order, Lord Lancefire. Descending to maximum Auspex depth. My daughter Teresa answered from her command throne, taking the Black Lament and the rest of the fleet beneath the orbital plane of the system. In several minutes, the auger screen lit up with the Demiurge fleet, but barely sensing the numerous but small mining drones. These would be the Demiurge? The Ordo Xenos Inquisitor spoke softly, while leaning on her bone staff to get a psychic read for herself. The ships look strange, but they are human, Lady Vale. And likely more advanced than our Adeptus Mechanicus. I added in a clear voice, making our tech priests perk up with tingling senses. Grabbing some advanced tech was their holy mission, after all. Human, you say? Lady Vale muttered in a low tone, almost doubtful. Well, not like us, I expect. But their language and runes originate from Terra. North Europe district, if my lore is correct. I answered while producing a different, but certainly human-designed dataslate running a runic script. The Inquisitor took a short glance at my dataslate, then nodded. Probably Scandic. I would guess they departed before the Great Crusade. Huh? My lovely blonde lover was quite a cultivated woman. Or, she knew more than she told me. Quite possible as well. Zorhulash had only mentioned a Necron pylon preventing warp travel to this system, and nothing about some Alpha Legion base. Then again, he was well asleep during the Horus Heresy times. We will reach optimum deployment position in a minute, Lord Lancefire. These ships do not appear to have noticed us. Teresa announced with her implant linked into the command throne. However, Auspex readings did not show us the inside of the Demiurge ships. Oh, they are aware now, Captain. The crew are rushing towards their combat stations. Inquisitor Vale exclaimed with a strident voice. Should I engage? Lash asked on the manifold. Not yet. I tapped my Vox Ped and began to speak, using the Demiurge dataslate to convert my words into the local language. Demiurge friends, this is an Imperial fleet. We have come to trade. I offered politely, while also stealing a few million mining drones. I could make use of these drones in my fringe domain, away from Imperial eyes. Trade? Lady Vale mouthed silently. She still had a lot to learn about this universe, no matter how much schooling they had her do in the Shola Progenium. We await for your proposal, Imperial fleet. The Demiurge replied after a few minutes of hurried scrambling. Thunderhawk 912, set course for the Demiurge fleet. I ordered as I glanced at the wolf-shaped Catan. You can have your fun once they dock. I explained with an inner sigh. The negotiations will be short. Having a pet Catan wasn't all nice toys and roses. The thing needed to eat, and their species ate souls. Woof, Canis demanded from the other side. Okay, fine, you both can have fun with the abhumans. Warding parties, prepare for transport. Auxiliary units, perimeter guard. Tech-loving personnel, new tech. I announced on a fleet-wide channel as the Thunderhawk transport docked with a Demiurge ship. By accident, my finger twitched and made a dozen Bastion_class_commerce_vessel vanish inside the Tesseract, just in case the negotiations turned sour. Okay, it wasn't an accident at all. And action. 1,000 Lamenta Space Marines, 4,000 Tech Marines with 120,000 Guardian Walkers, 40,000 Tech Priests, 400,000 armed Sentinels, 4 million auxiliary troops and 40 million combat servitors appeared at once on every Demiurge ship. While their vox boxes and servitor skulls kept blaring "We come in peace, lay down your weapons." In Demiurge words, they also kept shooting at any dwarf holding a weapon. It was a bit sad, but these Demiurge had been proven to trade STC data to the Tau aliens, thus declaring themselves an enemy to the Imperium in general and the Mechanicus in particular. There could be no good ending for them, not with so many witnesses, including thousands of tech priests and an Ordo Xenos Inquisitor. "Shall we, my lady?" I asked gently as Sergeant Ludvius stepped at my side, combi bolter in hand. The Inquisitor glanced down at her perky ass, worried it may become flat from too much sitting. "I will need some prisoners anyways." She accepted with a grin. A second later, we tesseracted in the middle of the biggest fight I could find, a giant hall filled with thousands of demiurge warriors wearing power armor that somehow managed to push our forces back. "On me, Lash," I demanded as my shields began to glow fiercely. Thousands of lightning arcs burst from Lady Vale's hands, felling hundreds of demiurge fighters at once, while others found their armors short-circuiting from the excessive electricity. "By the Primarch's burning beard," I heard Ludvius curse as his own reflector shield began to overheat from too many bolter rounds. I ran forward, phase blades slicing away at anything bearing arms. This was fun as well. Slice, skip, slice, dodge. My moves flowed into another, blade in my hand light as a feather. A minute later, Lash arrived from a side corridor and minced a few hundreds demiurge in a couple of seconds, moving at hyperspeed. Then silence. A thud sounded far too loud, as metal hit the deck with the mass of a ton of steel. I turned, and saw Ludvius gasping for air, missing half of his lower side. The shield must have failed seconds ago, maybe more. I was just lost in combat trance, too busy pretending to be a swordsman. A gentle breeze flew from Amberley's hand, sealing the leaking wounds as his null wand was a dozen meters away, still stuck inside my brother's leg. "Ludvius," I murmured in shock. "Don't be sad, brother. We will never die of old age." My blood brother whispered among coughs of blood, then closed his eyes, looking quite at peace. A flutter of wings, and his soul departed towards the Emperor. I just pointed a finger at the Catan, warning him to stay away. "I am not insane, Pef Lancefire. This food is not mine," the Catan said on the manifold circuit, then ran off towards the next fight. Ludvius was a good man. And I felt, wings? Amberley mused with a strange voice. I just nodded, then gripped my phase blade tighter. A few more kills, for the road, I only thought for a second, before deciding on my next bodyguard. My body was quite important to me. The White Scars Captain Joeton_Khan had been at my side for a century, and there wasn't anyone better with a sword around, except a Primarch. Those guys wouldn't become my bodyguards too easily. I just hoped he would prove more durable. A flick of the tesseract brought the Blade Master at my side. "Brother Joeton, welcome to my service," I explained with a sour voice, while nodding towards the cooling corpse of my blood angel brother. The man simply nodded, having seen too many such corpses. "It is our duty, Lord Lancefire. Try to keep on my left side in combat," he urged me as he picked the unlit hilt of the fallen phase blade. A green blade sprang out, changing length for a second until he locked desired one. "You held a phase blade before?" I asked, a bit surprised. "A brighter one, from a dead Calidus woman. The hilt was much more fragile, and way heavier." He mused to himself, as his right hand sliced the air 40 times in a second. I just shrugged, as the Calidus Temple would not have a pet Catan to craft them proper phase blades. They possibly simply energized broken Catan teeth with whatever portable batteries they could find. It would be a proper method for the polymorphic assassins. Focusing my mind on my own blade, I slowly extended the green beam to 2 meters. Then 3. I strained my mind, and began to push the beam even more. "You would simply slice off the hallways with that, my lord. Plus, you would be a danger to those around you." Joeton spoke in a warning tone, while he and Amberley both retreated a safe dozen meters away. "Oh right. I was being silly again." With a sigh, I drew the beam back to 1.1 meters of green, deadly blade. Even better than a green lightsaber, to be honest. With a glance at my tesseract vision, I picked another corridor and stored the broken body of my brother away. The trade negotiations should end soon. Dash. Victor glanced from Captain Chiron to Shield Captain Callan, finding these two were quite a perfect match. Stop trying to intimidate the boy, old man. When Pef Lancefire returns, he would only hunt you down and shove my fist up your tight ass. The dreadnought boomed from his coffin, making Victor cough his amasec down the wrong pipe. If I was trying to intimidate the good governor, I would be aiming a blade at him. The ex-custodes answered with a calm voice, making the pretty Calex's lady smile. Chiron just laughed loudly. Victor, my boy. It would only take you a second to flick this useless sack of old bones into the sun. I would also buy you a drink. Please, you too. I am not some mind-wiped Astartes to understand your brotherly teasing. Or whatever this is. Go away and let me talk with the lady, Victor demanded in a tired voice, making the custodes almost sputter in outrage. He waited for a second, then transported them both into the same brig cell. The pretty Calexis looked around for a second, then turned towards him with a smile. I wonder if your father would act the same way. She began with a honeyed voice. He did act this way, and far worse. I am not even 100th as brave as he is. But anyways, tell me about the tech you have. The woman sighed and placed a holographic disc on the table, projecting complex genome graphs and spiraling waves mingling like two drunk rainbows. The gene splicing would be easy enough. I believe your local biologist Magi can handle it. The soul inversion is complicated. Doubly so, for your own special Lancefire genes. I expect you have already experienced soul poisoning for your failed cases? Victor nodded, already expecting the worst. There are some others like you, that exhibit gene compatibility with the Emperor's gene seed, while being blank as well. But they are all sterile. The woman explained in a soft voice, watching his face for any signs. He could only sigh again. This was about the sensei. My father is not a sensei. He met the Emperor in person as well. Got new organs and stuff, Victor said in a low voice, and poured himself more booze. That's why the eye is here. Although he's not a blank, you shouldn't worry about his integrity. No custodes has ever fallen to chaos. She answered after a small sip of amasec. He is defective enough to be kicked out of the imperial palace. Bitter and old, possibly resentful. He can stay in the brig until we finish. Victor decided with a small shrug. The Imperium wasn't worth much here, no matter what they believed. So, you practice natural impregnation, to avoid the blank backlash? She asked in a careless voice. Victor nodded and gulped more amasec. I would like to try it as well. I never felt safe, until now. She muttered into her crystal glass. We should finish our bottle first. Victor proposed in a shy voice. The woman nodded and gulped her drink in one go. My name is Chi, or at least my symbol, she said softly while pointing at an X sign on her arm. Sounds like ancient Greek. My father has a psi titan called Occidentalis Sabacts. It means destroyer from the west, Victor said in a reminiscing voice. Yes, I've heard that. And rumors of 40 new such titans crafted by the Emperor's own hands. One of them will be sent to our temple, Chi whispered in a longing voice. Victor just filled their glasses, and kept silent. It would be hard for a pariah among the Imperials. Simply waiting in stasis for another mission, another kill team if I'm lucky. At least I won't be alone. The woman mused thoughtfully in her glass. You could stay here. He offered without knowing. Are you buying or selling? She asked with a sad laugh. Victor just smiled. His father had just given him unlimited authority. Might as well use it. I can do anything, my dear. But you would have to be willing. My father would fist me with Chiron's fist otherwise. He proclaimed with a grand toast. You realize, I would also become a Lancefire. I would have a family name. Chi wondered out loud. Victor grabbed the bottle and moved them both to his bedroom. Keep quiet, guys, he demanded in a soft voice, as he tucked the drunk assassin in his bed. The wolves glanced at the dreaded woman and crawled quietly towards the balcony door. His blood angel bodyguard rose his thumb up, for another successful hunt. Now, how did one kidnap a Calexus assassin, legally? Victor mused with drunk thoughts. He would have to ask his father. He had done that too. But Victor would be the first to score a Lady Calexus. He returned the thumb to the bodyguard, happy he had finally outscored his father. Pef Lancefire will be so proud, Lash. You know what this is? I asked the Catan with a digital poke. A cogitator, as you can clearly see in the visible spectrum. But, way more advanced than the crap you have around. Still wrapped in some kind of altar though. These demiurge aren't any better than your silly tech priests. The wolf Catan growled at me and somehow lifted his hind leg to scratch his head. Woo! My other wolf proposed in his wise ways. Yes, Canis. Of course we will take it. The problem is, how to see what's inside? I asked out loud, then dutifully scratched Canis on the head, until my fingers skipped over the mind impulse unit. Problem solved. Maybe Canis was the genius in this family. A flick on my chest opened the null box, and I retrieved my real rosette. Clavis engrams rushed out towards the demiurge machine, and I tenderly opened the manifold to interface with the strange machine. I would ask if this is wise, but I suspect it would be too late. I heard my bodyguard mutter before I flew away into the noosphere, entering the digital mindscape of the demiurge. Old codes. Terran codes. Who are you? The metallic tasting machine spirit asked in a curious voice. There are different truths to this question, demiurge. For example, your name means creative force, along with divine spirit and hundreds of other meanings. I am Pef Lancefire. I answered with a curious tone as well. Clever, clever. You are not kin, yet you are an old soul. Maybe older than me. The demiurge spirit answered as it began to link with my own implant database, trying to force open any file it might find. Now, don't go stealing data just like that. I will give you my data file, so you can observe my life and my deeds, I continued in a more relaxed tone, as the pef for life.dat/M41 was sent towards the demiurge cogitator. Minutes passed as the machine digested my history, from birth to today. Not everything of course, but the major data points. Parents, education, early campaigns, the Crusades, Cadia, and even some newer stuff from Terra and Stygius. I should find time to complete my logs, with this new crusade. I would say you're soft iron, but then you're here. And the giant black fortress too. What will happen to me, Pef Lancefire? The demiurge asked in a more pitiful and resigned tone. You have two choices, my new friend. 1, the Mechanicus will take you apart, cog by cog and file by file. Much like your kin, they worship technology and seek to understand. I hear it's not pleasant for the machine itself. I offered in a kind voice. I will take the second option, thank you. The Fane cogitator exclaimed in record time. The second option, you will receive a new kin. My Lancefire family in the fringe numbers around 1 billion, with thousands of ships and other war machines. We also have hundreds of STCs and even an intact ark from the Golden Age. I proposed in a more modest voice, this does sound better. And what will happen to my old kin? The demiurge asked in a fearful voice. Well, let's see. Those who took up arms against our troops are already dead. Those who did surrender will be taken by the Inquisition, to answer for the crime of sharing STC data with the Tau alien empire. And there are 12 Bastion ships hidden in my pocket, as well as their crews and a few million mining drones, I said in a lighter tone. I see. To the victor the spoils. Perhaps we shouldn't have given the Tau our iron technology. The demiurge answered in a contemplating tone. As I drew back, the demiurge Fane folded in my good tesseract, while I replaced the empty space with 100 dead mining drones pilled up to fill the cogitator alcove. Battle damage, so sad. Lord Lance, never mind. I expect we are good here. My bodyguard asked in a more relaxed voice, now that I wasn't mind-linked with a dubious alien machine. Good is relative. Too bad we couldn't find a working cogitator on this deck. Let's keep searching, I ordered, as Lash took point to absorb any demiurge traps which may remain. The Catan shard was more durable than a battleship anyways. He'll be fine. Canis moved at my side and nudged my glove, expecting another scratch for his wise advice. So he got it. I can be nice. I can. Was the demiurge worth the lives of 19 of my blank sons, as well as another million auxiliar troops? The Mechanicus would turn a dozen sectors and trillions of imperial citizens to ash without a doubt, for such a find. They probably burned even more already, just to recover fragments of the ancient knowledge. Their exploratory fleets didn't carry all those guns for fireworks. By the next day, I had packed up all the demiurge remains in the system, some in our cargo holds, others in the Tesseract, and my chapter returned to full numbers by producing 19 new lamenters from my pocket. If the collectors wanted more blanks, they should show up filled with equal value gifts. My sons were not for sale. Not cheaply, I mean. After this, me and Lash were a bit busy unlocking and absconding with a working Necron pylon, which should mesh quite nicely with my second black fortress. Picking a name for it would be harder. Damn, a pet Catan was amazing to have, no wonder Trazyn did so well. You have more snacks in your second labyrinth, rogue trader? I did well, didn't I? The Catan asked with a hungry voice. Ah yes. He needs to eat more souls. Canis only needs meat pellets, but he can't make me Catan-level tech. Choices, choices. Of course, my brave wolf. What would you like for supper? Orc or Tyrannid? I proposed with a joyful voice. I did have to thin the orc numbers anyways. No demiurge? They taste much better. The Catan complained in a childish tone. Careful now. Snacking on prisoners is not the same as snacking on combatants. What would your brother say? I warned him in a gentle voice, while flicking out more useless orcs. Crunch, crunch. The Catan ate his vegetables with a sad face, but he still ate them all. Good boy. Don't say anything, we never saw anything. My fierce bodyguard muttered while staring blankly at the ceiling. He was learning fast. WRRR. Woof. Canis growled and dragged a plump orc to a corner, to eat some vegetables as well. Don't fight over food, you two. I still have some orcs left, and there's 100 orcs planets en route to Forge Metallica. Might as well relax a little, and refill our pantry, after all this hard fighting. I proposed in a kind voice. Woo. Both wolves howled loudly. Orcs were great. Even Brother Joeton seemed to perk up at the news. Orcs made for excellent sport hunting.